The wind howled across the prairie that evening, carrying with it the smell of wood smoke and dust. In the corner of the small frontier town's tavern, a woman sat alone, her calloused hands folded tightly on her lap. She wasn't the kind of woman men turn twice to look at, not slim, not polished, not adorned with ribbons or perfume. Her figure was heavy from years of hard bread and harder labor. When she spoke, it was barely above a whisper, but it carried straight to the heart of the man standing near the fire. "No one loves a fat girl, sir, but I can cook." Her name was Martha, a settler woman who had lost her husband to fever on the long trail west. She survived by working odd jobs, mending, cooking, scrubbing floors. She had learned to keep her voice low, her eyes lowered. The world had been unkind to women like her. The man she spoke to was James Hollister, a rancher with a reputation, strong, fair, but distant. He'd built his spread from nothing, carving cattle trails out of wilderness, keeping to himself after losing his brother in a stampede years back. Folks whispered he was too hard, too cold. Martha hadn't meant to speak the words aloud. They'd slipped from her lips after someone at the tavern laughed when she dropped a plate. She thought James hadn't heard, but he had. He turned toward her, his weathered face unreadable. "Can you cook, ma'am?" he asked finally. His voice was deep, steady as the land itself. She nodded quickly, embarrassed. "I can. Stew, bread, biscuits. I can feed a crew." The tavern went quiet, a few men smirked. It wasn't a proposal, just words exchanged between two people beaten down by life. Yet something shifted in that silence. The next day, Martha found herself at the rancher's spread, apron tied, sleeves rolled up. She cooked like a woman who had something to prove, not to win a man's love, but to remind herself she still mattered. The air soon filled with the scent of sourdough rising and stew simmering. James watched from the doorway. He didn't comment, didn't smile, but when the ranch hands sat down that evening, not a word was spoken until every plate was clean. Martha had never seen men eat like that, their silence more respectful than applause. Days turned into weeks. She found herself cooking, mending, keeping order in the ranch house. She expected at any moment James would say her time was up. Instead, he asked her questions no one had asked in years, about her past, her dreams, her fears. She told him she feared being invisible, that the world had no place for women like her. He listened, really listened, as though every word mattered. And then came the turning point. One evening, as thunder rolled across the plains, one of the younger ranch hands mocked Martha, called her the fat cook within earshot of the whole crew. The room went still. Martha's cheeks burned, and she reached for her shawl to leave. But James stood up. His chair scraped the floor, his voice sharp as a whip. "Say that again, and you'll ride out before morning. That woman's worth more than a dozen of you put together. She keeps this place standing. You eat her food, wear the clothes she mends, and sleep under a roof she keeps clean. You show respect, or you're gone." The room was silent. The young hand lowered his gaze. And Martha froze, because for the first time in years, someone had stood for her. Not out of pity, but out of truth. Later that night, Martha whispered again, her voice trembling. "No one loves a fat girl, sir." James looked at her for a long moment, the firelight flickering in his tired eyes. "Then the world's been blind," he said simply. "Because I do." The ranch house felt different after that. Not perfect, not a fairy tale, but alive with something Martha had thought was long lost, hope. She laughed more, and James, though still gruff, smiled when he thought no one noticed. Word spread, of course. Folks in town raised their brows, whispered behind hands. But when they saw James and Martha together, saw the steadiness, the warmth, the quiet dignity, they stopped mocking. Slowly, respect replaced scorn. Years later, The ranch became known not just for its cattle but for its kitchen, where weary travelers were fed meals that tasted of home. Martha's biscuits were spoken of in the same breath as James's herds. Together, they had built more than a ranch, they had built a life. And Martha? She was never invisible again. Because sometimes love doesn't come in the shape the world expects. Sometimes, it's found in the quiet strength of a woman who believes she has nothing left to offer, and the man wise enough to see she's worth everything.